Hey there, it's Nathalie, and I bet you're thinking, how much mileage is she going to get out of that pattern? Y'all have been great. Y'all have downloaded this pattern like right at 10,000 times. So I'm making this video per the request of several subscribers. One is that to enlarge it. I mean, I've got like little thin flat hair, fine thin hair, but some of you have like really been blessed with like lots of hair and big fat ponytails. So I'm going to show you how to enlarge this pattern. You can go over to myhaulcloset.com and subscribe. If you have an issue, just send me an email and I will send the pattern to you, but you need to subscribe. Okay, so I have the pattern. I've already downloaded it for me. I'm going to show you how to enlarge this, kind of like used to be on the Simplicity and McCall's patterns. There are little instructions about that. But anyway, it's going to be really simple. And then I'm going to also do a real-time stitch through some of the areas that y'all were having trouble with. Okay, so don't go away. Okay, once you have the pattern downloaded, you're going to want to go to in your printer settings and print actual size. And you're going to want to double check and make sure that this little square that's on the crown piece is actually 1 inch. And this is 1 inch square, so we know that it's the right size. And I'm going to cut out, I have cut out, both of these say number 1, should probably say number 1 at 1A and 1B, but they don't. And since it's already been downloaded like 10,000 times almost, I'm not going to worry about it at this point. Anyway, so I'm just going to cut this. Whoops, get in there. And I'm going to leave a little bit at the top here on the ponytail section. And on this part, I'm going to cut this off. Okay, and so this is going to get taped together. You're going to match those two little hash marks and this heavy line. I'm going to use Scotch tape. You can use whatever kind of tape you want to. So you would be surprised at some of the comments and questions that I get. So if I sound real, I don't mean to sound snarky or sarcastic or anything like that. I'm going to try to be as simple as I can. Now, I'm going to show you how to mark your paper. It doesn't have to be purple either. You can use pink, you can use green, you can use white if you want to, but I'm going to show you purple just so that you can see how the enlargement's going to go. Now, I'm going to do a 1 inch all the way down and a 1 inch across, and I'm going to do a 1 inch enlargement on the crown also. Okay, so what I'm going to do, you can use a pencil, a pen, a crayon, or a Sharpie. I'm using a Sharpie so you can see what I'm doing. Now I'm going to move in a 1/2 inch. And this doesn't really matter. What's going to matter is you want the 1 inch mark to be distinct, okay? And then, like if I was going to go ahead and go all the way across my paper, I would do another 1/2 inch. This is going to be my cut line. And then I would do another 1/2 inch, so I'll have a little bit of an allowance. And I'm going to go ahead and do another inch. And in just a second, this is going to make sense, I hope. And I cannot tell you how many times with like some of the questions that I've gotten, and I'll type out an answer and I'm like, oh, I hope this makes sense. I hope this makes sense. And some of you like comment back, yes, thank you for helping. Okay, so I've got these. Let me go ahead and cut. So I've got, this is my 1 inch. This is going to be my gap. And so I've got me a little bit of a wiggle room here. So I'm going to cut that, and this is the same way. I've got a 1/2 inch space, 1 inch, and another 1/2 inch. This is my extender. And I cheated. I've started some on the other side, so I'm just going to flip over You don't have to do the other side. I just started this and I thought I've got to talk you through this. Okay, and this worked out really well, so I've got my 1-inch gap here, 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 and on this one. All right, I'm going to move those to the side for just a second. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down the middle of this. I could add it out here. That's an idea. I really actually could add it to the front, but then it would mess up my buttonhole markings and some of those markings. I'm not going to worry so much about the button marking, but I am going to just go what I was originally going to do, which was going to be fold it down the middle. And you can measure it if you want to make sure you get it folded right. I'm just going to go to this where that fold is on, that little line there is almost on that dip. Let's put it right on the dip. And I'm going to do this one first. I'm going to cut here. And line this up. Tape. And tape. You need another little piece. Let's just go ahead and do that. So I'm going to take this piece and line it up. There we go. All right, and to do, you know what? Because I'm going to cut across this, this is straight and then it starts to go to a curve. So I'm going to go ahead and do this expansion in the straight part and not in this curved part. So I'm going to fold this down and let's see. Let's just say that's 3 inches. All right. So fold that down 3 inches. Make sure I've got some tape right in that little section right there. And then I'm going to cut across. So this is going to give us some more room for the crown of the head too. So we're going to do exactly the same thing. I'm going to take this, line that up on that edge to the 1-inch mark. Okay, now I am not going to do this on this one, but I'm going to tell you that if you've got like a really fat ponytail, once you come down, you really need this curve to make the crown work. But you can swing this out like and down. If you need a bigger, fatter ponytail area, here you go, like that. This is going to give you more room on the top of the head. You could actually, if you wanted to, do a 1/2 inch here, split this and do a 1/2 inch down here, or another inch down here. But this is how you enlarge a pattern. Now since we've enlarged this, we also need to enlarge this, or this is not going to fit. It's going to be way too tight. Okay, so we're going to split this. So that's about at that D, about middle way in that D. This is going to be another long video because anytime I do real time, it's going to be long. I've watched some of these that they do them real fast, and I'm like, I'm not sure how they get it done so fast. I'm a pretty fast sewer too. But, all right, and let's line this one up. I have this pretty butterfly fabric that I bought from a vendor on Etsy, and I'll link a description, her link in the box below, the description box below. And when you're cutting it out, it does not matter whether it is pretty sides up or pretty sides together. Only when you're stitching it, but cutting it doesn't really matter. So there's a little bit of a selvage right there. I want to get off of that a little bit. So I'm going to scoot this down. I think it's probably about 19 inches now. You could just put it on the fold of the fabric. Now I've already washed this fabric in hot water to make sure that it's all shrunk. This is 100% cotton. Line this up. I folded this on the cross grain. The cross grain, this is the straight grain where the selvage is, where it has like the pretty little designs and little color dots and all that stuff. And I just made a little selvage bag in my last video. But the cross grain has a little bit more stretch in it. The straight grain does not. And I like to cut this so that it has a little bit more stretch as it goes around your head. I think we're going to be okay leaving our buttonhole where it's at for this, but if you wanted to move it up a ½ inch, you could. But it's actually for the strap, the drawstring, that's going to... You'll work 2 buttonholes, one on the right side, one on the left side, but it'll only go through 1 layer of fabric. I have this cheater sheet that I have made, and so let me show you how this works. So this is different than the first video that I demonstrated on. And so I'm going to mark this on the right side. I'm still folded. It says front. It also says bottom. So what I've done is I've just cut me a piece of cardstock, measured my buttonhole. I think I moved it in just a little bit. But so here's the bottom, and there's the front. And I'm going to use this as a Marks Be Gone. You can use a pencil. You can use a friction pen. Probably don't want to use a Sharpie. But this goes away with water. And I'm going to mark my buttonhole and then just flip this over. And the reason I mark the front is because that's not going to transfer the same like that, because now this is not the front anymore. This is the front. So I did the same on the back side. So it says front and front. So when I flip this, then I've got me a cheater spot to mark my buttonhole there. And that's going on a little green butterfly, but I can still see that mark. Alright, so that gets this ready to put the buttonholes in. Move that to the side and go ahead and cut our crown. And let me see if I got a spot in here that'll fit. I don't think that's going to fit in any of that spot, but it's going to fit right here. Get all that extra stuff out of the way. Now, then the other thing you can do is, if you want to, is you can just take a piece of copy paper and fold it in half and cut you like a full take a piece of copy paper, fold it in half, take this, and you can either draw it or just cut it. And if I'm cutting multiple caps, I have several of these full ones cut so that I can lay them this way and that way and this way. All right, but so this shows me my full size that I'm going to have. I'm going to go ahead, I already have this on a fold, so I'm going to use this. And again, it doesn't matter at this point, it doesn't matter whether it's the pretty side up or the pretty side together, because this is just the cutting. It does matter if your pattern has an up or a down. Like if all the butterflies were flying up, you would want them all flying up rather than all down. You're still going to need about 1/3 of a yard of fabric for this cap. And I may show you how to make a drawstring and not use elastic. So I think I will do that. I'm going to put a little notch right in here in the top of the crown. And on this one, let me move that out of the way. On this curved edge, I'm going to put a little notch right there in the middle, right there. And those will be my match-up places whenever I get ready to sew these. So there's my crown, and there's the little notch. You can see it right there. There. All right, so to make some drawstrings, I'm going to cut the fabric 2 inches wide. That looks like a pretty good straight edge right there. And so I'm going to need this to be probably about 18 inches. Now you could actually do this first before you cut your cap if you wanted to, but make sure you have enough for your cap too. This is 2 inches, and this is 17. This is 18 inches long, so this is going to be just right. I think they're starting to get some elastic at Amazon, different ones. I ordered some the other day. It ended up being the wrong size. I ordered 3/8 and I got a 1/4 inch. So we'll just make do. But I'll show you this just in case you don't have elastic or ribbons. If you were going to do this with ribbons, you have ribbons, go ahead and do, like, you could do a yard of ribbon and then just sew that through. But I'll show you, you don't have to sew the ribbon. You would thread it through the drawstring hole. I thought it felt like it skipped. To make my drawstring, I took the 2 pieces, put them pretty sides together, and I stitched a little 1/4 inch seam there. I'm going to open this out, and I'm going to open this and press it. Then I'm going to fold this in half. I'm going to press that the length, the whole entire length. And then half again on both sides. So you're going to fold the edges into the fold. and do both sides. And if you need to turn it to do the other side, you can. Just whatever is more comfortable for your hands and with your iron. And I'm going to do that the entire length, but I'm not going to do all that. All right, so at this end, let me move the iron out of the way. So at the end, that in about 1/4 of an inch or 1/2 an inch, I'm going to give it a press. I'm going to do that on both ends. Press that in. The other side. And fold it in half. And then we're going to just press that, and we're going to take this to the sewing machine, and we'll just do a little edge stitch on this. So I'm going to go ahead and catch the other end. Fold it in half to the middle. Fold the edges to the middle and press. And the same thing with the other side. And I'm going to press that halfway again, just to make sure that that's folded right and pressed in. Give it a little shot of steam. Okay. All right, I have it pressed all the way the entire length of this, and now we're going to go to the sewing machine. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do before I stitch anything together, learn this the hard way, is go ahead. It's a lot easier to do this at the very beginning. I could see my mark, and I've got a little piece of interfacing, and I'm going to stabilize this with the interfacing on the back side. So what I'm going to do, and hopefully you can see this, I can hold this to the light, and I can see the interfacing through that. I don't know if you can see that or not, but I'm going to pin that in place. Now, it depends on what your buttonhole attachment is like. The buttons and this buttonhole have nothing to do with each other, okay? So the button is only to hold the mask on, and the buttonhole is for the drawstring to go in and out of, okay? Alright, and so there's my other one. I'm going to turn it this way so I can see through it and get that, so you can sort of kind of see through it, and get that piece of interfacing pinned in place. I'm going to pin down the middle of it. This works well with my buttonhole attachment, and so however your sewing machine works, then you can figure out your way that you need to mark your buttonholes, whatever your instruction manual says, okay? And I'm going to stitch with, I've got these little black lines that are in here. I'm going to stitch this in black. I could stitch it in white, but I'm going to stitch it in black. And I already have my attachment set to the length that I need this to go. And so I know that I'm going to line up this little mark, and there's a little inside mark with this center mark. And watch my cross place. Set that needle in. Make sure this is kind of straight across the back. Pull that one out. Pull that one out. I don't want to stitch over my pins. Mine works with this little reverse thing, so I'm going to put that in. Make sure I don't get my hand in your way so you can see. And sometimes if I'm doing, like last night I did, 8 or 10 caps or something like that. And I didn't cut the thread. I just kept going, just, you know, kind of pulled it out a little bit and kept making buttonholes, and then went at the end and cut everything apart. And that little blue mark will go away with a little drop of water. I'm going to trim away the excess. Because all that was for was just to stabilize the buttonhole, give it a little extra support while I stitched. Keep it from wadding up, because sometimes it'll do that. And I'm going to do this with the other buttonhole too. And then cut this. I like to do it from the back side. You can do it from the front or the back. Do a little clip, and then clip to the edge. Okay. All right, to make the drawstring, I'm going to go ahead and, instead of trying to start at the edge, which is okay, but some machines don't like to do that, so I'm going to put my needle in place and do a couple of stitches forward, and then a couple of stitches back, and then go forward. Get to the corner, pivot, and we're just going to stitch right close to the edge. That shifted on me. You could stitch down this other side too if you wanted to, but I'm not going to, just this one side for right now. This is kind of a stretch anyway, because your average watch time of my videos is 5 minutes. So, I know some of you stay with me till the end, but if you need to fast forward through, that's okay. You're not going to hurt my feelings about that. Alright, I didn't mark my dot because I've made so many of these, but you would mark that little dip, that little dot in the dip. Alright, and then you're going to have one on your crown too, but you're going to match those two dots together. And you can pin it if you want to. It has a little bit more stretch, so I usually stretch the bottom and not so much on the top, and just kind of manipulate that in. And so I'm going about a pressure foot wide. It's a little bit more than 1/4 of an inch, but not quite. It's not quite 3/8. And I'm pulling on this bottom part, and I'm going to watch as I come around the curve, because I want to pay attention to my notches. Not so much pulling on the bottom, giving it a little bit more on the top. Got going to do the same thing with this other side so they'll come out even. So not so much pull right now, a little bit more pull across the crown. Then as I come down, I start to pull the bottom. You can pin it. That works. As I have put these in my Etsy shop, I've made enough of them that I don't really have to pin them now. And so as I get down here, I can see that I'm pretty close on my matching here and here. And again, you can pin that if you want to. Just make sure you don't stitch into this part. Okay, so we're going to match to that. We're going to stitch down to this point right here. This is stitching the crown in place. Now I had one subscriber that wanted to know, because I usually either serge this. I serge. You can zigzag it, or you can just leave it like that too. I mean, if you're trying to get them done, get them out there, and hopefully that prayerfully we are at the end of this shelter in place and COVID thing. And of course, I know they're predicting like a second worst round, and I just really would like to rebuke that. But anyway, that's other thing. Let's go to the serger. I'm not going to teach you how to use a serger, how to thread a serger. I'm just going to show you how I serge. So I come in, there's the crown part. You can do it from this side, but I like to do it from the top side where the band is. And so what I'm going to do, I've lifted up my presser foot, get these strings out of the way, and I'm going to bring that dip right to the edge of where those blades are. Okay, just right in there. And because those blades will cut pretty easily, and I don't want to do that. Now I have my stitch length set at like a 4. I don't know what your settings on your serger are. I'm kind of watching this notch and that seam. And I'm sure that you could probably serge and sew at the same time, but that's you and this is me. Because I can't get down into that dip the way I want to with my serger. I can do this for the finishing. As I get down to this, again to the little dip, I'm going to make sure that I don't catch anything underneath, and I'm going to move this, kind of fold that out of the way. And I'm going to swing it because I don't want to cut that off and I don't want to stitch it down. So I'm going to swing that out so then it's free like that. All right? Why am I asking you all right? Of course you're going to say, all right, I got it. I understand now. So that's what it looks like at this point. So now back to the sewing machine to do the ponytail part. On the ponytail part on the sewing machine, I like to start from this straight edge. The curve is down here. Line that up. We'll do a little back stitch. Okay, now as I get down to this section, I want to make sure I don't catch this little piece in my seam. So I'm just going to reach in there and just kind of pull that up, and those extra threads get out of there. Come here. There we go. And then I can feel underneath there. And I'm going to match this stitch to this little area right here. Back stitch. And back to the serger. I'm going to come in right here. I've got my presser foot up, and I'm going to ooch that close to where that other stitching stopped to start with my serging. Y'all always want to look in the comments too. Because there's a lot of times that there are real helpful suggestions from people who may not have YouTube channels, but they know what they're talking about. So be sure you check that out too. All right, so now I'm going to trim off this and show you from the front side. So there's the where the crown is serged and the ponytail part is serged. And this is how we look on the right side. All right? Trim that thread right off there. Ding. All right, now we're ready to do the casing part. We're through with the serger. To form the casing, you're going to measure in 1 1/4 inches and turn that. And I just started at the buttonhole just because you don't have to, but you can see buttonhole's going to be good. So 1 1/4 inches. And then we're going to turn under 1/4 inch, 1 1/4 inches. And I just turn that under as I go, but you can certainly turn it under and pin it to start off with. There. But it's really easy for me to just turn it as I go. So 1 1/4 inches. We're back to this other buttonhole. Let's do one more pin in here just for y'all. I just appreciate y'all's support so much. I'm almost at 10,000 subscribers, and I could not have done this without y'all. And it is such a blessing to be able to be a blessing to those frontline workers. This is so cool. To be able to use it, since I'm not a nurse or EMT or anybody like that. It's so neat to be able to use my talents that God has given me to be able to bless those who are serving. All right, so we're going to go now back to the sewing machine. We're going to do a little edge stitch on that 1 1/4 inches. Let me get my machine back over here where you can see it. There we go. And I like to start at the center back, but you don't have to start there. But I like for my extra threads and, you know, where I backstitch to kind of not be in a real obvious place, like on the top of the head or something like that. All right, so get that started, backstitch, and then this is what I'm talking about. I just kind of ooch that under. It's about 1/4 inch. I mean, I've sewed. I'm 60 years old, and I've sewed since I was probably 7 or 8. And I guess if you wanted to put the drawstring in first and then just avoid it, you could, but I don't like to do that. I'm always afraid I'm going to stitch into it and then it won't draw. Okay, that gives us a pretty band there for nice big hair. And then we're going to put our drawstring through. So I'm going to use move that pin, use a large safety pin and pin into the end of my drawstring. Now you can also use ribbon, or you can use bias tape. We're finally getting a few supplies back into our Walmart store. I actually even saw a couple of sewing machines the other day. And so feed that in. Okay, now on this one, since I'm using a fabric drawstring, I'm going to feel with my fingers for the fullness of that seam that's the center seam. But if you were using a ribbon that has no center seam, see, I just felt it pop through there, then you would just measure in half. And so I'm going to show you how to do that too. So, okay, so I can tell, I can feel that seam is right there. But if you were going to use ribbon, then you would just measure to halfway. Get that out of here. So make sure that there's not any gathers up in this. Find your halfway of your ribbon and adjust that to the halfway to the seam here, and that's where you'll put your seam. And that's to keep this from pulling out when you're putting it on. Okay, so let me just get this back over, and I'm going to stitch in a couple of stitches back and forth here. So in case you have no elastic, now you can actually draw this up however far you want to draw that up around your ponytail. Okay? The next thing is to put a button on. I'm not going to show you how to do that, but because we did the adjustment on this, now probably just personally you could figure this out, but this is my cheater for my buttons, and it actually measures in 2 3/4. So we added an inch, and I think I would just come down like maybe a half an inch from here. Let me just flip this over. I've got this at 6.5 inches, so maybe 7 inches down and 2 3/4 inches in. I got this under the buttonhole thing the other day. So that's where I would put my buttons. But if you're sewing for like your daughter, your niece, or whatever, then you can measure and see which is going to be the best fitting for that. Just someplace where it's up off of their ears. All right, I think that's going to get us. Thank you so much for watching. I love it that you're liking and subscribing and sharing. And be sure you hop over to myhaulcloset.com so you can get the pattern. And I will see you next time. Bye.